Judiciary and Homeland Security. Thank you, sweetheart. Okay. Get it all set up. No. I don't hear any, do you? I don't hear any. Okay. And good morning. Welcome to the Committee on Public Safety, Judiciary, and Homeland Security. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Kniezek. Commissioner Kenlock.
Present.
Commissioner Basham.
Present.
Commissioner Scott has requested an excuse. Chair Clark Coleman.
Yes, here.
You have a quorum present.
Thank you. Clerk.
B, Chairwoman's remarks.
And I have none other than to welcome our esteemed prosecutor to our meeting today. We're honored to have you here. Look forward to your presentation, Madam Prosecutor. Next item.
C, approval of the June 29th, 2022 meeting minutes.
Motion.
Support.
Where'd the motion come from? Oh, okay. It's been properly moved by Commissioner Kniezek, supported by Commissioner Basham. Are there questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries. Next item, Madam Clerk.
D, unfinished business. There is none listed. Item 1, under new business, requesting commission approval of Amendment 1 to a subrecipient agreement with Avalon Healing Center.
Tony, you're up.
Chair and members of the committee, what you have before you is simply an extension of 1 year request on a subrecipient agreement between Wayne County and the Avalon Healing Center, which was formerly the Wayne County Sexual Assault Forensic Examiners Program. The funds for this are all coming from a grant. There is no county match required, and they're coming from the fiscal year 2019 Sexual Assault Kit Initiative grant from the U.S. Department of Justice. The amount will not exceed the current amount, which is $134,457. The term of the extension would be October 1 of this year, 2022, through September 30th of 2023.
Are number 1 and 2 both extensions?
Yes.
Well, let's just take one at a time. Madam Clerk, would you please call the, no, we need a motion.
Move approval. Support.
Probably moved by Commissioner Kenlock, supported by Commissioner Basham. Are there questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please, no, I'm sorry, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Kniezek. Commissioner Kenlock.
Yes.
Commissioner Basham.
Yes.
Chair Clark Coleman.
Yes. The motion carries. Next item, item number 2.
Item 2, requesting commission approval of modification 1 to a fiscal year 2020 post-conviction testing of DNA evidence project grant with the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Tony, you're up.
Through the chair, I apologize. Tony Guerrero, Chief of Legislation, Grants and Community Relations for the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office. This is also an extension of 1 year on modification number 1. It is a grant that allows the Cooley Law School project to screen and bring to conclusion 200 DNA-related cases. The amount of the grant remains at $500,000. Again, no county match is required. This is merely an extension that would go from October 1 of 2022 through September 30th of 2023. We would ask your approval.
Can I have a motion, please? Properly moved by Commissioner Knizek, supported by Commissioner Kinlock. None, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Knizek? Commissioner Kinlock?
Yes.
Commissioner Basham?
Yes.
Chair Clark Coleman?
Yes, the motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Item, Madam Clerk.
Item 3, revision of resolution number 2022-252, approving retroactive amendment 4 to a sole source software maintenance agreement with Central Square Technologies DBA Superior.
So do we,
Good morning.
Amaya, you're on.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Sumaya Harb, Director of Administration at the Sheriff's Office. This retroactive amendment was approved by both Public Safety and Full Board. However, when we sent the resolution to get a purchase order from procurement, we realized that the account number that was listed on the resolution was the wrong account number. So we're in front of you so we can make a change to the resolution to indicate Fund 101 and Business Unit 35100, which is the county jails.
We're just amending it with the proper account number.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You have your motion. Oh, Commissioner Basham.
Yes, Madam Chair, this is a sole source retroactive, but I voted for it after it was explained previously. And so, and I understand this is just about the dollar amount, so I'll be supporting this also. Thank you. I usually don't support sole source or retroactive contracts. Thank you.
Okay, so can I get a motion? Properly moved by Commissioner Knizek, supported by Commissioner Kinlock. Are there questions on the motion? None, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Knizek? Commissioner Kinlock?
Yes.
Commissioner Basham?
Yes.
Chair Clark Coleman?
Yes. Motion carries. Next item.
Item 4, requesting commission approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network.
This is for DWIN. Okay. Oh, okay, I was gonna say who, oh, Ebony. Okay, Ebony.
Good morning. Through the chair, Ebony McCann, Wayne County Adult Community Corrections Administrator. Before you, you have permission, the department is requesting permission to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network to provide services for community corrections offenders. The intergovernmental agreement is 100% grant funded through the Michigan Department of Corrections Office of Community Corrections application that the Community Corrections Department submits and applies for annually. The application and award was approved by the commission on December 2nd. We are hoping to have your approval so that we can begin providing these services as the fiscal year is coming up to an end.
Move approval. Support.
Properly moved by Commissioner Kinlock, supported by Commissioner Basham. Are there questions on the motion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Knizek? Commissioner Kinlock?
Yes.
Commissioner Basham?
Yes.
Chair Clark Coleman?
Yes, the motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Clerk.
Item 5, requesting commission approval of a fiscal year 2020 State Criminal Alien Application Program Grant Award with the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, Bureau of Justice Assistance.
This is Samaya, are you there?
Yes, I'm still here through the chair. We are requesting your approval for this grant from the Department of Justice. It's called the State Criminal Alien Assistance Program. The purpose of this grant is to help the Department of Justice to identify aliens who may have a felony charge anywhere in the United States. What we do is we send our inmate data to a company called Justice Benefits, which Commission had approved earlier this year. The Justice Benefit Inc. does have a national database, which we do not have. They cross-reference multiple agencies nationwide to see which alien inmate may have a felony charge, and they send that information to the Department of Justice, and ultimately the Department of Justice will pay us. We usually pay the Justice Benefit Inc. about $33,000, and on average we get $100,000. A little bit more with this one. I think we are allotted $116,000.
Okay, so what happens here is that we have an officer or who monitors those inmates who are not citizens, right?
Yes. Aliens, they had to be born outside the United States. So I'm considered an alien. I was born outside the United States.
Okay, all right. And so
and
there's
it's
no
not-
county match?
No county
And,
match.
and it's completely funded through this grant from
Department of
the
Justice.
Department of Justice.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's not an officer that mans the jail management system. It's an IT person who runs the report when they tell us it's time to send them the report.
Commissioner Kniesik.
So I understand that we're talking about a grant program here. We may or may not have some latitude, but I'm wondering, at the end of the day, we may be talking about undocumented individuals, but we are talking about human beings. And I always have an issue when we refer to other human beings as aliens. And so I was
I didn't
wondering,
use that word.
I noticed that you took good cause in your choice of words, Madam Chair, and I appreciate that. So I'm just wondering, maybe we could get some thought to how we talk about our fellow human beings, either in this grant or internally. I don't know what latitude we may or may not have. Maybe you can't answer that, Sumaya. Maybe we can't answer it here in the committee, but I'd be remiss if I didn't raise my concern with the language that we use to dehumanize other human beings.
You're absolutely right, Commissioner. It's the program. The program from the Department of Justice is called State Criminal Alien Application Program. So that's why we're referring it to it as, and I apologize for using the wrong word, but I'm following what the Department of Justice had named the program. But
You
you're
don't-
absolutely
You don't have to apologize, Sumaya. I love you. And you called yourself one. So be nice to yourself.
no,
Be nice to yourself and love yourself. So that's all I'll raise here. Maybe in the future, we'll have an opportunity to revisit that.
yes, you're absolutely right. Thank you. Appreciate you. And I appreciate the question.
Thank you, ma'am.
Are there any other questions or concerns about item number 5? Can I have a motion?
Move, Madam Chair.
Or
Properly moved by Commissioner Kenlock, supported by Commissioner Basham. Are there any more questions on this motion? Okay, hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Kniesik, Commissioner Kenlock,
Yes.
Commissioner Basham,
yes,
Chair Clark Coleman.
Yes, the motion carries. Okay, our item number 6 is a presentation by our own prosecutor, Kim Worthy, on the subject of opioids causing death. So, Madam Prosecutor, you're on.
Good morning, and thank you for having me, Madam Chair, and all the other commissioners that are here. Thank you very much. I hope you don't get tired of seeing me. I know that I make frequent appearances here.
We
I
never
am.
do.
Oh,
We never
thank
get tired of seeing
Thank you. I am here because I found out kind of accidentally that there were monies that were appropriated to Wayne County from the state, apparently from opioid settlements. And each state got a certain amount of money, and I'm assuming that each county, maybe not every county in Michigan, but at least Wayne County did get some funds. I'm unsure exactly of how much it is. I know it's, I don't know if it's 1.2 million a year or if it's 1.2 million spread out over several years, but I will be finding out that information. It is, I am told it is being administered through the health department. And so I am here to make a presentation on the related work that we do. I am certainly asking for, and it hasn't come to the commission as far as I know for appropriation. As I know it will be one soon. I'm trying to be proactive. I certainly think that our office, the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, who does do cases that are related to this area, because I think this is another pandemic type issue. And I want you to see the work that we do, why it's important, and why that I will be claiming or asking for anyway, for a portion of this money for us to help prosecute these cases. I am going to present to you one of my senior prosecutors, John Casey, long-term prosecutor, excellent prosecutor, who is, at least until for a few more days anyway, head of my drug unit. We had to collapse the drug unit because we have a lack of staff to sustain it. But Mr. Casey does do these opioid causing deaths cases. He's going to tell you how difficult they are to practice, to put together and investigate, because you can imagine it's hard to find the drug dealer or person that then gives the drugs to the person who eventually overdoses and dies. And so we have been doing these cases for a while. We have about 20 of them in the system, and I would like him to walk through this with you so that you can see that we have a very strong, hopefully claim to some of these funds that have been dispersed to the state, from the state to the counties.
And these funds come from the Department of Justice, the U.S. Department?
I don't know where they come from. It's my understanding that they are part of a settlement agreement from some of the opioid lawsuits that were had.
Oh.
I don't know if the state filed it. I know the AG was involved as well. And then there's certain, I don't know what formula was used, but I know that the monies were dispersed to the counties. I don't know if all the counties got this money or counties with the biggest, I have no idea how it was dispersed. I just know that I found out that Wayne County got a disbursement, and I said, we do these cases. And so I certainly want to make put our interest into, so you can see the work that we do in this area, because it's critical to be able to get people off the street that are providing these drugs to our citizens.
We have one person, I know Martha's not here, but we have Commissioner Kinlock, who is on Ways and Means, who will certainly be able to take that back to his committee.
I'm going to present Mr. Casey to you, who will make that presentation. Please feel free, he's very learned in this area. Please feel free to ask him or me any follow-up questions. John?
And thank you, Madam Chair and members of the commission. As Ms. Worthy said, my name is John Casey. I've been a prosecutor in the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office. I started as an intern back in 1996. I've been there ever since, and I've had the privilege and pleasure of working for Judge Worthy in a number of capacities, most recently as the head of our major drug unit. So I'm here today to tell you a little bit about what that drug unit did, the scope of the problems we face, specifically dealing with the opioid crisis, the effects that that's had on us as a prosecutor's office and the type of cases we've seen, describing the scope of that problem and the way that our office and prosecutors can address it. Okay, I'm going to do that through a PowerPoint presentation. If I can get it going, boom, share. Okay, so the first thing is to determine how big the problem is you're dealing with. And for Wayne County and for the whole nation, studies have shown that 80% of the people who are currently addicted using heroin developed that addiction and began with prescription pills, oxycodone, hydrocodone. There was a glut of those prescriptions out there. People got hooked on those substances. And then when the prescriptions went away, those people turned to the street market, to illegal illicit narcotics, to medicate their pain and to manage their addictions. So that's heroin, how heroin came back on the scene. Heroin nowadays is a little bit different. There's a substance called fentanyl. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid, much less expensive than heroin. It's manufactured in labs. It has a number of legitimate medical uses. It's used sometimes during pregnancy to ease the pains of childbirth. But on the streets, it's used and mixed in with heroin to devastating effects. It's so potent that we're talking about a few grains of salt is the difference between getting high and dying. That amount, it's sufficient to take a person's life. Okay.
What you're seeing on the screen now, these are maps showing overdoses. These are all overdoses, not just the fatal overdoses spread throughout Wayne County. We have, of course, it's everywhere in Wayne County. It's lit up. You can see like a beacon there. These are all the overdoses just from January to March of 2021. We had a total of 1,754 overdoses in Wayne County in a 3-month period. Of those, 129 resulted in fatalities, people who overdosed and either weren't found or weren't able to be resuscitated. And that's 3 months. April to June, again, 103 fatal overdoses, 1,200 odd non-fatal overdoses. July through September, again, 119 fatal overdoses, again, almost 2,000 overdoses in total. And again, October to December, the end of last year, 2021, 147 fatal overdoses. And again, you can see that just the map covers all of Wayne County. It's in every community, every part of our community. The totals for, you can see between 2020 and 2021, the number of suspected overdoses went down, but the number that were fatal went up. Almost 500 deaths in 2021 as a result of overdoses on controlled substances. And I'd like to thank, we had working with Michigan State, they were using a program called OD Maps to put those maps together for us to give us an idea of what we were dealing with. Okay. 7,176 overdoses. That's a lot. That's a lot of families impacted, a lot of individuals impacted. Almost 500 deaths. And these are staggering numbers. 498 completely preventable, unnecessary deaths. And as a result of those deaths, there's a crime in Michigan. It's called delivery of a controlled substance resulting in death. It involves where a defendant or suspect delivers Schedule 1 or 2 controlled substance, that's cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, what have you, and a death results. Okay, it's punishable by up to life in prison. In a way, it's a combination of a homicide charge as well as a narcotics charge with all of the intricacies of both. Okay, so you take those 498 deaths, we had any one of those 7,000, but for a few grains of fentanyl could have been a death themselves. That's a lot of cases. In 2021, law enforcement in Michigan seized 98 kilograms of illicit fentanyl on the street. These are local police departments executing search warrants and raids, finding, again, that's a lot of kilograms. You can get from 1 kilogram of fentanyl, I believe it's like 6,000 doses or hits, 60,000, excuse me, doses or hits from a single kilogram of fentanyl. And these are just what the law enforcement was able to recover. What you're seeing in this photograph, they found these are pills, and they appear for all the world to be oxycodone pills. It's a commonly prescribed painkiller. You see it's the little blue pill with an M on it in a 30 milligram size. But what they found is those pills are not, in fact, actual oxycodone pills. They are pills, God knows what, but with fentanyl in them to deliver the effect to the user. You might recall Prince died as a result of getting some pills that he thought were legitimate oxycodone, but turned out to have fentanyl in them. You can see that those pills, those nice, shiny, clean cut, pressed pills are different from the actual pills. The actual pills are a little bit more rough, a little less refined. If you had to pick one, you'd probably pick the one that turned out to be fentanyl because it looks so much sharper, so much crisper. These photographs are provided by Michigan HIDTA. That's a high intensity drug trafficking area. Again, it's one of the departments or one of the entities we work with in trying to address this problem. These show some of the seizures they've had, the different agencies that have recovered here in Wayne County and as well as in the city of Detroit. 2 kilograms of fentanyl recovered in April of 22 by the County of Macomb enforcement team. They're tasked with working at the Greyhound bus station. It's staggering the amount of narcotics that are moving through there, and they've been fortunate enough to interdict and get a lot of it off the street, 2 kilograms in a single day. In April of 2022, MNET, that's the Metro Narcotics Enforcement Team, again, almost 0.5 kilogram of methamphetamines, 100 grams of fentanyl. From June of 2022, just this year, DPD managed to recover 2 kilograms of fentanyl, almost half a kilogram of heroin, a little over half a kilogram of cocaine and meth. This is a single seizure. One location had all those narcotics that were recovered. And then in April 2021, coming through the post office, 25 pounds of meth, as well as some fentanyl pills, pills mocked up out of fentanyl. And that was coming through the mail, through the post office. You can see the amount of this stuff coming into Wayne County from all corners, even through the mail. But the reach of the overdose deaths goes far beyond just Wayne County. There was a case decided in 2019 by the state Supreme Court, People versus McBurroughs. And People versus McBurroughs, it's actually pending now in Wayne County. It involved a couple individuals came up from Monroe County up to the city of Detroit, purchased some narcotics, went home, used those narcotics. One of them died, one of them lived. Initially, the Monroe County Prosecutor's Office charged the case. It went up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court instructed us that the proper venue where those cases have to be charged, tried, and ultimately resolved is the jurisdiction where the delivery happened. In this case, although the death happened in Monroe County, the proper venue, the prosecutor's office that was charged and responsible for prosecuting this case would be our office, the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office. Wherever the delivery occurs, that's where the case resides, where the case grows and is ultimately resolved. Regardless of where in Michigan the death occurs, our office is charged and responsible. It's our duty to prosecute those cases. We've had cases from Monroe, Washtenaw, Oakland, Macomb, Wexford, Ingham counties, all over the state. We had one come in just the other day from Berrien County asking us for help with an investigation. Again, people that, one case, it was a young woman, came back from Japan. She'd been working over in Japan, came home to Metro Airport, picked up some heroin right there just outside, not far from the airport, went up to Lansing, took it and died, you know. That's an example of a case that begins here. The death impact is felt elsewhere, but we're again responsible for prosecuting that case. Ultimately, the person resolved itself with a plea, fortunately. Okay. As prosecutors, how can we address this problem? You've seen the scope of it, the amount of narcotics we're dealing with, the amount of overdoses and deaths. There's two things that we can do as prosecutors in an attempt to address this problem. We can try to reduce the demand for the narcotics and try to reduce the supply, okay? The effects of prosecution on demand. These are people who are using it. These are people who struggle with addictions and have found themselves arrested in custody. Well, there's two ways we can affect them. First of all, it's just going through that process can be a powerful disincentive. While they're incarcerated, sometimes they can dry out. They can get that foothold on recovery. It's an opportunity for change. Through the course, there's a number of programs dealing with treatment and addressing the addiction that's fueling the demand. But our unit, the major drug unit, we were more focused on the supply side of the equation, being a disincentive to the dealers out there. Increasing the major drug unit, we were hoping to increase the likelihood of detecting and incarcerating individuals selling large amounts of opioids, heroin, fentanyl, oxycodone, hydrocodone, as well as cocaine, the other Schedule II narcotics. These cases working with police results in the seizure of narcotics. Every gram that police recover is a gram that someone's kid isn't going to use. So that's part of our aims. We want to increase the cost of doing business, makes people think twice before they go into that line of work. All right. The focus is not, we're not going after the users who are struggling with their addiction. We're going after the dealers, as I call them, people who are making their living off of other people dying. Our goal is to get them and as much of their product off the street as possible. What do we need to do that? Well, we need dedicated assistant prosecutors. Okay. We assist 50 agencies, law enforcement agencies, that's state, that's local, that's federal law enforcement agencies involved in the investigation of narcotics cases and as well as deliveries causing death. We appear in over 25 district courts all around Wayne County. That's just in Wayne County alone. And then of course, we have 18 trial courtrooms down at Frank Murphy. We have cases pending in all of those jurisdictions and dealing with all these agencies. We assist law enforcement in a number of ways from the get-go. The beginning of an investigation, there's a number of obstacles to these cases. We assist police officers in a number of ways, reviewing search warrants, doing what we call investigative subpoenas. That's a powerful tool in these sort of cases, reviewing the arrest warrants, and as well as identifying the issues that are unique to these cases that are half homicide, half narcotic case, okay? By having dedicated prosecutors who are doing this regularly, developing the expertise to negotiate and navigate those issues is essential. It helps, guarantees a better outcome in the case overall. Some of those obstacles to an investigation from the beginning that make these cases so challenging is the need to preserve physical evidence. Again, these cases, the delivery causing death, they begin with someone finding the victim deceased, okay? And from there, law enforcement has to put together where did the narcotics that took their life come from? And that can be very difficult. The person who purchased those narcotics is deceased. They have to gather evidence immediately and begin putting those puzzle pieces together to track back to the source of that narcotics, to the dealer. We can assist them with search warrants to search locations for evidence. We can begin early on by talking to the police about what kind of evidence makes a good delivery causing death case. Cell phones are important, social media communications, any video evidence, ring doorbells, what have you, to help tell the tale of how the deceased person received those narcotics. Preservation of not just physical evidence, but also testimony through the use of something called an investigative subpoena. It's a tool in the investigator's toolbox. Oftentimes, the surviving person that goes with the victim to buy narcotics, they're battling their own addiction issues. They're concerned about, first of all, losing access to the substance they're addicted to, cooperating with police, being perceived as a snitch, which is a negative thing in their communities. But by getting them early, I'll tell you, we had one case, two young men, Jason and Kyle, they came from Westland into Detroit, all the way over to the east side, Detroit, number 9, the 9th precinct. And both of them purchased narcotics from a location. They went back. Jason used them. He was fine. Woke up the next day. Kyle did not. Kyle died. And in talking to Jason early on, we sat down with Jason. He was able to tell us where they went and who they bought the narcotics from. He told me a story about, he had the experience of waking up wrapped in a carpet in a field. He had went to a house. He had used the narcotics. The proprietors of the location thought he had died. They bundled him up like so much trash, and he woke up in a field. He told me that didn't slow him down at all. He went right back to that place because that had the strong stuff. That's the stuff that if you're an addict, that's what you're looking for. But having his friend die and seeing the aftermath, the effects on his friend's family, the people that cared about him, that made an impact on him. And that's why we were able to get him in, get his testimony, and get him on the path to not use it anymore. So that shows how important it is to get in there early, get these witnesses cooperating while they're still feeling it, okay, still feeling the effects of the loss of their friend. Again, that's powerful evidence, and it's a way we help preserve it early on in the investigation. We also review these arrest warrant requests with knowledge of the pitfalls that come with these kind of cases. There are a lot of cases where we might think or suspect or probably who sold the fatal narcotics to our victims, but that's not enough for us in a criminal case. We need proof beyond a reasonable doubt. But we can still work with law enforcement to develop a narcotics case, the other angle of these cases, part homicide, part narcotics cases, to at least get the narcotics, get them off the streets, and have some kind of sanction for the narcotics dealers. Okay. Other evidentiary issues, a lot of times our victims come across, they had their issues, they had their warts. Dealing with that with the jury, presenting these cases in a way that reminds people that the deceased victims, for all their faults, for their addiction, are sons, brothers, daughters, family. They have family out there that loves them. They're human beings. We had another case, and it was actually the same case with Kyle and Jason. There was a young lady who was living in the dope house. When the police executed a search warrant, she was in there, and she initially got cleaned up, got healthy, provided information to the police, and was a witness at an exam. But by the trial, she had relapsed, and she was clean and healthy at the exam. She was in custody by the time of trial. Again, she fell right back into that lifestyle. She got, bringing her over to testify from the jail, she got in a fight with another inmate and had to testify with a bloody nose. She had picked a fight trying to get out of testifying. Those are the kind of problems you're dealing with this case. After that, the investigation, all the things you have to do in all of our cases, they're more so in a delivery causing death case. From the exam, preparing discovery, that's something people in our office spend a lot of time to do. It can take hours, if not days. A big part of what we do now is review body-worn camera footage. If you have 10 officers that respond to a scene in the execution of a search warrant, that's not uncommon. All 10 of those officers have body-worn cameras. They're running for a half hour. That's 5 hours of video. You have to review to make sure there's no personal information, no innocent bystanders' faces captured, making sure that's all removed and redacted as part of the discovery process. Cell phone extractions. We're talking gigabytes of data. Once you download those from a phone of a suspected drug dealer, you can have gigabytes of data, communications, text, video, photos, what have you, that needs to be carefully reviewed and vetted before exam. Motion practice is extensive, motions to suppress evidence, to suppress statements, all the kinds of motions that you routinely get with a narcotics case and a homicide case. We have to prepare, respond to those. Keeping track of witnesses, as I've talked about, can be very difficult. Getting them to court, getting them hopefully healthy, getting them treatment so that they can be at least better in life. Again, addressing from the jury selection, the biases that come with narcotics use, and then conducting the trial efficiently. One of the other goals that's unique to these kind of cases is the idea of flipping up the food chain. Again, you have to have a tight case. You have to have the right defendant with the right case. And by having dedicated prosecutors doing that work, we can make just about any case the right case. And that's where you get a defendant who has information about greater sources of opioids to allow law enforcement to work their way up the food chain to get more weight, more narcotics off the street. Okay. So what do we need? We need prosecutors whose full-time job is doing this, addressing these kind of cases. We want to be able to have one APA in court trying a narcotics case while another APA is reviewing maybe a search warrant, helping with an investigation. A third APA might be in district court. We need to cover all those district courts, all those courtrooms. Of those 500 cases last year, we have 20 active cases. That's a fraction of a percentage. Each one of those cases is a delivery causing death. Each one of those cases is a crime punished by up to imprisonment. If we manage to close all of those, that's as many as we had homicides in Wayne County last year. By having dedicated prosecutors, we build up the experience and the training to get a positive outcome for the people of Wayne County. Okay. One of the other things that would be of great use in the case of these types is a dedicated victim witness advocate. Again, you're dealing with, in the deliveries causing death, families that have lost a loved one. You see all the different spectrum of human reactions to this. There's parents that have done everything they can. They've been fighting this for years with their kid, but finally it caught up with them and they've lost their loved one. You see the ones that are very resolved, and it was just, they were waiting for that phone call that finally came. It's every parent's worst nightmare. There's other ones that are in complete denial. They can't conceive that their loved one was involved in that lifestyle, was carrying that weight, and they didn't notice. There's can be a lot of survivor's guilt in families. By having a victim witness advocate that has experience with that, to work with the victims' families, to work with our witnesses, to help them address their addiction issues would be invaluable. Okay. Again, discovery, we need someone to sift through that. When I talk about mountains of discovery, it's overwhelming sometimes, the number of hours of body worn camera you have to sift through, the phone data, medical records, medical reports, what have you. Having a dedicated discovery clerk that can help and assist in reviewing that, putting together would be, again, invaluable. So that gives you sort of a nickel tour of what we were doing in the major drug unit, the problems we faced, how we tried to address them. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to share my experiences with you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. That was thorough. Thank you so much. Commissioner Kenlaw.
Yes. Have a question. My question is, just to listen to you, one, this here is an important part of what your office do. Oftentimes, people aren't empathetic to the struggles and challenges of individuals who are going through drug addiction. And when they die, oftentimes that empathy absolutely is absent because of various thoughts and opinions people have. But these individuals absolutely belong to families and individuals who love them. And I am just glad to hear that Wayne County is absolutely taking it very serious in its attempt to try to bring some closure, because oftentimes when people die from drug overdose, you're outraged, not only with the death of the loved one, but you're also outraged as it relates to the person who delivering the source of the death. And so this is very important work that you're doing in bringing some type of closure. In order to, we are dealing with the construction of the new criminal justice complex, and what we've been doing was asking individual departments who will be utilizing the new facilities to come and let this commission through its committee know that this is going to be a fit for your operations moving forward. I hear you talk about the preservation of physical evidence. I hear you speak to needing additional personnel. Is all of that part, has it been part of the conversation that you may have been having with the administration in light of this new move? Will you have appropriate office spaces as well as storage area for all of this evidence, not only with this particular part of your operation, but all the various stuff that your office undertake that we've been absolutely hearing over the past years?
But as far as the physical evidence, we hold on to that as briefly as possible, usually only when we're actually in trial. It's the agencies, DPD, MSP that retains and curates that up until trial. Now, during trial, we do have a secure place where we can store it while the trial is pending. But so hopefully it doesn't pile up, we try and keep that. But and as Prosecutor Worthy said, we had a drug unit, but just because of our personnel shortages, we need people to cover the courtrooms we have, and we're getting there. So we've had this unit in the past, so I'm sure that we'll make room for them, that won't be an issue. Yeah. And it's, I've got a desk, an office with a desk and another desk for another APA, and that's kind of all we need in base, is a phone and a desk, but elbow room is nice. Okay.
Hey, are you done, Commissioner?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Basham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In a different life, when I worked for Ford Motor Company, I was employee assistance rep, put people in treatment for mental health and subabuse. And what I noticed was when we actually, and this was back in the 80s, when we actually had a residential program, 28-day program, they would detox and send them to a residential program. It was not 100% recovery, but it was a percentage. But when they cut out those residential programs and only did 3 days detox, you don't have the numbers. And so are we as a county, and I know it's not your purview and I appreciate the good work that you're doing. But we having conversations about actually residential programs versus just detox?
And again, it's a little bit outside of my wheelhouse, but
Yeah.
more is better. And because I've seen, we've had witnesses that have gone through this. And there's some that, you know, they do it themselves, and that never works. You know, those are the ones who are right back on it. The more time they have, we've had ones that have gone through full residential programs. Those are the ones that, just from my own experience of them, have done better longer. And we do have a number of drug court programs through the courts. Now, what the status of where they end up, I don't know.
If there's something I could do or that I could, you know, advocate for or steer me in a direction to talk to somebody or some group or some department, I actually, you know, have firsthand experience from that. And it's actually, it really bugs me when we act like we're saving money over here, but we actually costing lives over here because you're really not truly saving. They go right back to doing what they used to do.
And that's, if nothing else, just how insidious the pull of this stuff is. You know, I've heard from officers that if the word gets on the street that this house, someone overdosed on the narcotics from this narcotics location, that will actually increase the demand because that means it's the strong stuff, it's the potent stuff. If you're an addict who's having trouble chasing that initial high, that's the stuff they gravitate to. It's the pull is terrifying when you think about it.
And you know, I empathize with the families, with the parents, because there are so many parents who are affected by this, and they really want to be able to help them, but they don't know how, and they get so frustrated because they pour so much into it, and then they get no results. So we certainly need residential programs, but the problem is, as you mentioned before, you know, they get cleaned out and you think that they're on the road to recovery, and for some strange reason, they just relapse. And it's so sad. I've known families who have gone through this, and they just pour their whole life into trying to save their child. And nothing just seems to work. Any other questions or concerns? But Madam Prosecutor, I definitely support your efforts here. I know that it's something we need to invest in. And if there are opioid funds that come to Wayne County, it certainly ought to be, you ought to be able to weigh in on getting some of those funds for your office, because you are in a position, your office is, to determine whether or not that person, well, you will have an impact on it, whether the person will be locked up, get them so that they're not able to continue spreading this poison out there among our young people. So
Yes,
it is important.
Right. And I want to emphasize something that Mr. Casey said. You know, our goal is not to punish the people who are addicted. That's not our goal.
Right.
Our goal is to punish or try to punish and hold responsible the people who are knowingly dispensing
Absolutely.
these drugs, knowing that this is going to occur. And I want to just comment on something that Commissioner Kinlock and Commissioner Basham said. One of the things that we talked about when we sat down at the beginning stages of the CJC, the Criminal Justice Complex, is that we still now, but we were certainly doing it then, when we're prosecuting these major drug cases, we would have to ride the elevator with the general public. There were no separate elevators. So we ride the elevator with people with the AK-47s that had been taken away, the guns, all the drugs, kilos of cocaine, and back when we were doing marijuana, we were actually riding the elevator with the public and some of the defendants we were prosecuting. So that certainly isn't safe. So one of the things that we asked for were the separate compartments that you see in the new plan. So we took, and there's other things too, many, many other things. And Commissioner Basham, I am not suggesting that, and I know you don't think that, but I certainly think that residential treatment programs are important. What I am trying to lay claim for some of the funds that we can use to get these dealers off the street that are knowingly killing our not just youth, but our citizens.
Of all ages.
All over the county, as you saw from some of the screens that you saw. It's just a county-wide issue in every aspect of our county.
The question, Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Kinlaw.
My question is, as we're going through the budget process, have you identified, have you actually included this in your budget?
I did not include this in my budget. I am hoping that, well, let me back up. I included some positions for this, yes. I'll just say for another time what I was told from the recommendation.
Well, I know this is.
We always include what we think we need. I should tell you and put on the record that John is such an exceptional prosecutor. I moved him into a supervisory position, more of a supervisory position, because we have very young prosecutors. 85% of our office people have less than 5 years experience, and we need experienced people like John to help with our trial division. And so, we're not only have to replace him, but also asking for additional support as well. Although I think I'm going to ask him to keep some of these cases. I think I told him that, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have now on the line Chair Bell. Would you like to weigh in on this, Chair Alicia Bell?
Good morning. I just wanted to come in for the conversation. No questions. Thank you for the presentation. It was awesome. So that we're able to spread some of this money over to the prosecutor's office.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, let me just state again that I certainly, thank you, Madam Chair, for always coming in and commenting and always listening. I really appreciate that about you. And again, we certainly can use these funds in other ways, educational campaigns, residential treatment. And we just want to make sure that we are above the fray and we hopefully will be appropriated some of this funding to better further prosecute these cases against these dealers that are destroying our children and destroying our community.
Well,
thank you for your presentation today. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Prosecutor. And thank you for bringing these kinds of things to our attention, because, we might not always be aware. Well, we know that opioids, it's just poison, but we might not know what your needs are and what you can do, what your mission is in order to reduce the usage. So, so I thank you for bringing not only this, but the other issues that you bring before us to educate us. So we need to know where those needs are. And I certainly agree with you that if there are funds that they have sent to the counties, then we should make sure that that the prosecutor's office gets a chance to get some of those funds.
Yes, and the CEO's office has directed me to talk to the health director, because I think that this money that's gone through are going straight to the health department. So I will be doing that. I believe I already have a meeting set up.
Sure. Okay. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we will move on from that presentation. Madam Clerk, next item.
F, such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
And I've not been informed of any other items.
Public comments.
Okay, would you open the lines? It is now time for public comments. And if there's anyone on Zoom or on the phone that would like to make a comment at this time, you are welcome to go ahead. So at this time, are there any persons who would like to comment at this time? All right, so public comments will be taken at this time. If there anyone there, either Zoom or on the phones, then I would urge you to make those comments now. Last call. Public comments. Okay, Madam Clerk, do we have any emails?
No emails.
You're done, we'll move to the next item.
Adjournment.
Support.
Okay. It's been properly moved and supported. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Those opposed?